What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Smoke Pit. I'm joined today by my good friend and three-time former colleague, Tim Hendrickson, perhaps better known by his pen name, T.R. Hendricks. Tim was a tanker and Army intel officer. For a while, he was a celebrity bodyguard, and most recently authored the book, The Instructor. So without further ado, Tim, welcome to the Smoke Pit.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for this opportunity. I've been looking forward to it for a long time now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have been trying to make this happen for a minute now, and finally got it. Is it what do you prefer, that Tim or TR?
I go by Tim. Tim is fine.
Okay.
TR is just kind of like my feigned attempt at having a pen name. Just
Okay.
I honestly, it's like an old joke that I said in like high school or something to one of my teachers. I said, if I ever get published, I'm gonna have my name be shortened to T.R. Hendricks, because if I did Timothy Robert Hendrickson, it wouldn't fit. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's a little cumbersome. Doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
right, exactly.
So you've been aspiring to write for a minute then. I mean, if you were talking about this in high school.
Sure. I mean, I would say my serious pursuit of becoming published was about 8-9 years ago. I'd say like 2014 time frame is when I really started to pursue it as a goal to achieve, and take seriously this idea that I've got the chops. I can actually make this happen if I put the work in and whatnot. But in terms of like imagination and writing, I've been doing that since like middle school, and it's just whatever kind of concept or genre pops into my head at the moment. I'm like, oh, that would be a cool story, or that would make it actually started as like, oh, that would make a cool movie, because we watched a ton of movies growing up. We didn't have cable TV in my house. But I had a brother that worked in the public library, and they had a huge like VHS collection. So he would come home from work with two VHS tapes like every shift. So we just consumed movies all the time. I can't tell you how many times I watched like the original Batman with Michael Keaton,
Oh yeah.
and just, I mean, and like the Indiana Jones series. We just like wore those tapes out, So that's where the concept would come from. I'd be like, oh, that'd make a great movie. And then later on, as I started reading novels myself, I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. That would make a cool book. And I just started, writing. I had no concept of what I was doing. Obviously, it was just like, I love action sequences, so I'm going to write action. I don't care about character development or plot or whatever. Just like, how do we get to the next battle scene? How do we fight the next dragon? And that was kind of like the driving force. But it's like any other muscle. You work it out enough, it gets stronger. So I just kept doing it and doing it. I passed a lot of time overseas, just free writing and typing away, in the downtime, and eventually got the concept for The Instructor that brought me to where we are today.
Very cool. Then all you needed at that point was a cool pen name.
Yeah, exactly. And the testament to my writing abilities, that's the best I could come up with. So
now, of course, I don't know how much we can talk about this, but your original handle when I met you was like a 3-letter abbreviation, and then I had a similar call sign.
Man, you gotta jog my memory on these things. I don't remember.
Again, I don't know.
Oh, and
yeah.
Gavin. Yeah,
There we go.
And GDPA. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, that was a fun time. It's such a long time ago. That's why, I mean, the memory is mush. But
yeah,
we were in the same bodyguard firm, the executive protection agency that we worked in, and that was an interesting time, to say the least.
That was an interesting time. That was
very hectic. Getting a call at 11:30 at night that you need to be in Connecticut in 25 minutes. I'm like, okay, but you do realize like I have to go through the city. Like I can't just drive over the Long Island Sound. There's no
Yeah,
bridge
this
there,
isn't Men in Black. We don't have the
Yeah.
car to go through the
Yeah.
tunnels.
I got to kind of go around, and there's the Merit, and it's going to take a little more than 25 minutes. I'll get there,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
got to work with me here. Yeah. Yeah.
I think my favorite one was I get a call, and I was in Atlanta at the time, and they're like, "Hey, we need you in California for maybe a week at the
Yeah.
most." I'm like, "Okay." So I packed 2 suits. I fly out there. It turned into like a 2.5, 3 week detail, living in a hotel, like washing my suits in the hotel washing machine.
Oh,
Oh,
yikes.
it was exhausting.
Oh
And
yeah, they pulled that one on me too, where they sent me out to some estate from some exceedingly obscenely rich person, and they had this estate right on the Pacific Ocean, and you actually had to do rounds on a golf cart because the property was so huge.
wow.
And part of the rounds was going into the actual mansion, the primary residence, and walking around. The owners weren't there at the time; they were gone. We were just solely there to protect the estate and all the
Yeah.
valuables inside and everything. And I walked around in that place, and there were just racks and racks of women's dresses. I guess the principal's spouse, or maybe she was the principal herself. I don't remember, but she's a big collector of nice clothing. And every time I turned around, I could have swore one of those dresses was moving. And I walked out of there that first night, and I said, "There's no doubt in my mind that this place is haunted as fuck. Like, I mean, it is haunted, and I'm going to be possessed by a ghost by the end of this detail." So, yeah,
Well, I can't
was
wait. I
fun.
can't wait to read that book, man.
Yeah. I do have a couple of ghost story books in mind, yeah, but I don't
Nice.
know, that might violate the NDA if I go on that one.
Probably. I would have loved to have had a golf cart for this one because the day started with like, a 1/4 mile walk up the serpentining uphill driveway to the
Sheesh.
estate.
Ugh.
And then it's like, so I had a partner on this detail, and we would
Okay.
end up getting there. I insisted that we got there like 30 to 45 minutes early so that we could, go up, and you got to show up in full kit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
couldn't
you
show up
can't
and you're
show
not
up and then
ready.
dress once you're there, yeah.
So, all right, full kit, body armor, the whole nine, get up to the estate, check in. And then before clocking in, I would just like spend 30 minutes naked in the bathroom, cooling off. And with this one bathroom I found with a great air conditioning vent that just blew right down in the toilet. And
Oh
I'm
my
just
god.
sprawled out, with my whole, like my body armor on the floor, drying out.
Yeah, exactly. I
It's
love
just that I
that.
didn't look like a sloppy swamp monster at the
Right,
start of my shift.
we want you to be as, tailored and polished as possible in front of the client. Oh, by the way, we're gonna make you wear and carry all this stuff, and, you're gonna do it in the most dank, humid temperatures around, so, look dapper, but don't sweat. Yeah, okay.
There you go. There you
Sounds good,
go.
guys.
And it
No,
was
it
the
was it
same
was
thing
it was
actually
a
at the next place we worked together at what was it?
mm.
Summit Security.
Yeah, it's Summit Security.
It's
They got sold actually. They're no longer. Well, you know that. I think
Yeah,
you're
I
well.
remember.
I think you're well aware. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I ended up going and working for the people who bought them.
Right. Exactly.
In
But
fact, I
yeah.
was working for the people who bought them when they were bought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
But yeah, no. The Summit had that wonderful gotta wear a suit every day policy, and
yeah.
that in mixing with the New York City July August weather, where you're walking past heaps of hot, wet garbage and going into the subways, which are like the seventh level of hell. It
Yeah.
just
Seventh level of hell with like wading pools of piss everywhere.
yeah, that too,
Yeah,
yeah, and then get onto the Long Island Railroad, which is so much fun as well. Standing room only, just people yelling, old ladies throwing things at you, because
yeah.
you won't scrunch in the other half inch that you have left of your own personal space. I loved commuting. I loved commuting into the city. It was great.
Oh yeah, that's a spectacular time. I used to say like when I would commute into the city, You remember that scene from The Gladiator when they're like going up the ramp to the Coliseum and you can
Yeah.
hear the
Yeah.
screams and the charge of the crowd and everything, and
Sure.
doors open. That was me going up that escalator that led to 7th Avenue.
Yeah.
I could see the lights. I could hear the sounds of the Coliseum, and I'm just ready to fucking kill someone.
Yeah, the first tourist that doesn't know how to walk and gets right in your way to take a picture,
Oh, yeah. God forbid they do that on like the subway. So, oh, this makes a nice shot. Boom.
New Yorkers are nice. We're not this violent.
Yeah. What he said.
Who said
So before we started working together in the civilian world,
Yeah,
yeah, you were in the army too, man. You
that's
started
right.
off as a tanker, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
As
correct.
a DAT,
I
as
was
they call them.
a I was a tanker. I was, full of the twisted steel and sex appeal, as we like to say, in the armor community.
I like that.
But yeah, I loved. I had this cool thing because I went through ROTC here on the island at school, and upon or shortly before commissioning, you put in your request for what branch you wanted to be assigned to. And I had accumulated enough kind of like seniority or rank, I guess you could say, because they rate all the cadets in the program that are getting commissioned. So I was near enough to the top of the list that I was pretty certain whatever I put in for, I was going to get. But I was massively divided between armor because I wanted to do combat arms, but I didn't want to do infantry. I didn't want to do field artillery. Um, and like I didn't have the eyes for aviation and all this other stuff. So and then I had a very influential captain who was armor as well, and I was like, yeah, I want to be like that guy. That guy's kind of badass, and the Abrams tank is badass, and armor's the best, all that stuff, so
Right.
but I wanted to do my combat arms time, but I was really, really interested in military intelligence. I wanted to see what it would be like to be in the intelligence community. I thought that would be a fun avenue to explore as well in my career. So the Army has this wonderful thing called branch detail program, which is essentially certain branches don't need that many lieutenants. They really only need captains and above because of just the way the branch is structured.
I mean, I don't think there's any MOS that really needs lieutenants.
Well, yeah, it's an
I mean,
accurate
if
point.
we want to get lost in the woods, we can put a private on point. Like,
This is true. I was good at land nav at one point, not anymore. But
what's the difference between a second lieutenant and a private first class? The PFC's been promoted twice.
I thought I'd heard them all, but no, apparently
Yeah.
not.
Welcome to the smoke pit.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I volunteered for this thing, and basically it's like I was commissioned as a military intelligence officer, but under the branch detail program, they loaned me out to armor. So I went to armor basic, officer basic course at Fort Knox, Kentucky at the time. And the concept is like you do your platoon time and your first lieutenant time, XO stuff. And then you go to the captain's career course, get as an intel officer, and then you get sent back down to an armor line unit to work as like the battalion S2 and do the intel workups, because it's like,
oh, cool.
how an armor unit operates.
Yeah.
So now we're going to train you in intel, and then we're going to send you back to an armor unit so you can do the intel work and be cohesive with the structure, because you know how everything's going. You've got the backdrop of having been a platoon leader and whatnot. So it's a good concept on paper. It didn't work out that way for me because I did my armor time, did my first rotation in Baghdad as an armor platoon leader. I didn't have tanks. I had an armored Humvee platoon. So,
oh, wow.
Adapt and overcome, right?
What do you do with that?
So that was interesting because we essentially had to adapt like armor training in terms of like our maneuverability and kind of in most cases being, especially in like when I was there 2004 2005, the IEDs weren't as sophisticated yet where they could really make an impact on an Abrams, like
Yeah, no, that wasn't
the
until like what,
worst.
07, 08 that they started throwing
Yeah,
like EFPs at us from Iran that were compromising the armor on anything.
right. And then, stacking the artillery shells like 8-9 deep, and those were the ones that were like blowing the turrets out of the thing, and
Oh, they were definitely doing that in solder in 05.
yeah, no, I mean it was nasty,
Yeah.
but really, like, so in most cases, early on like that you have this sense of we're invincible, as long as we're in our tank, like, the worst that's going to happen is like the track is going to get thrown. You might get isolated, or your comms get knocked out, but like if you're in the tank, you should be okay, provided the thing doesn't catch fire, which is bad. But you get put into a Humvee platoon, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we have to adapt how we do everything because we're not invincible. We can get really screwed up if we get hit by one of these things.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, route reconnaissance is different. We have to do log pack, which is, like logistical escort missions and
Supply runs and shit like that.
yeah, VIP, take the brigade commander or take this general from point A to point B, and you better make sure he gets there safe. Like, oh, okay, got it. Just simple things like dropping guys and gals off at the airport at BIOP so they could go on their 2 weeks leave. We'd have to do the armed escort for them. So we're going down, Irish and everything else, the IED alley, just things constantly going off and blowing up and everything. So it was, and then not for nothing, we got mixed into, because we were, my particular company, this was before they had the combat arms battalions. So they were still operating as task force. So I was Bravo Company 112 Cav, which was a tank battalion and tank company. But Bravo Company got swapped over to 25 Cav, which is mechanized infantry.
Mm-hmm.
So 112 and 25 swapped their Bravo companies. So I ended up being the tank company assigned to a mechanized infantry battalion. So we had to then further adapt because the entire battalion from the top on down had a mechanized infantry mindset, so they had no problems. We only had one platoon of tanks, which was not mine. So they had no problem using my platoon and third platoon as like infantry roles, so we had our fair share of like kicking down doors and stuff too, which is like, wait a second, we did this for like half a day in armor basic. It was just like they didn't even have an actual shoot house for us at Knox. They had engineering tape that they just put a big
those glass houses
on the ground, and we just had to go in and clear, and like we're tripping all over each other and flopping, and the company commander screaming at us, and we're like we didn't join up to do the infantry thing,
Yeah,
so
it's funny because people do love to, joke about, and it's back and forth. We call you guys DATs, dumbass tankers. It's the same thing you call those crunchies.
Yeah.
But we love to make fun of the dumbass grunts, right? But I mean, when you have to like get down to the ground and do our job, like it's incredibly technical. And it's interesting.
100%.
We went through this too, man. We 2502 infantry with the 101st, we got, I don't know where they came from, we got a company of tanks as well. After we had like established a foothold in solder and was like, we could use some additional support.
Right.
And so every platoon, I think, or every company in the battalion got 2 tanks. I don't know what that equates to, a section, a squadron.
Yeah, it's a section. Yeah.
A section. Okay. Yeah, they were not happy when we told them that they were going to have to dismount with us and like actually be part of the route clearance. And we're trying to teach them how to do like a deep V and push out. And I mean, they were kicking and screaming, going like, absolutely
Yeah.
not. We have these tanks for a reason. Like, we
Yeah.
can just clear the route for you.
Just send us
Here's
down the
the
road. Yeah.
yeah. Like,
What do you
it
what are you
doesn't
making me
work
walk
like that
for?
anymore, man. They figured that shit out. The ID wires, the command wires are running 200 meters, 45 degrees out. You're not
Mhm.
going to set them off. You're going to hit something that's going to kill us, man. And no, you're like, dude, guess what? You're dismounting. One of
Wow.
the guys, like, not to make light of this, one of the dudes actually killed themselves in the tent the day before we were supposed to go out. Like, the dude did not want to get out of his tank.
Wow.
And yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
And
I venture to guess that there was some other things going on with him, to
I have to assume.
take that drastic of approach. But yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
boy.
But
I
it
mean,
was it was good having them there. I'll tell you a funny story about these tanks, and
yeah,
you can
I
probably
love
fill in some
tank
blanks
stories.
for me, maybe.
Sure.
But we had this TCP house, a traffic control point. It was one of two ways in and out of solder. Everything else was blocked off, and we had these tanks at the TCP. Just, I mean, they eliminated like 3 or 4 guard positions. With the
Sure.
thermals and
Yeah. Yeah.
all the tech in the tanks. Like, we didn't need as many boots on the ground. It was great.
Right.
But at some point, and we were right on the Euphrates, and on the other side of the Euphrates was the Marines AO.
Okay.
At some point, one of the tankers is just scanning, and they see something going on across the river. Or no, it was someone on the roof sees
Mm.
something going on across the river, and they're like, "Hey, these are bad dudes. Like, can we engage?" And someone's got the idea, like, "Why don't we let the tanks do it? Like, let's see what a
Main
120
gun.
millimeter cannon looks like."
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a big deal. Like, we had to, send it all the way up,
Sure.
and then they got to push it down into the Marines freak and make sure, like, okay, we're clear.
Everybody's clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can shoot into this sector.
Right.
And we're all excited. We're like, a bunch of us run up on the roof, and we're like, we're gonna see some shit. So they get their distance and direction. Boom! They fire the 120, and they're like, hit, hit, hit. And our FO on the roof is like, negative. That's not a hit. I got eyes on the target. They're like, no, negative. That is a hit. We just watched these dudes disappear. So they run all the math again. Apparently, this tank was aimed like an exact click out. They overshot by 1,000 meters.
Oh my
And there
God.
just so happened to be some bad dudes doing some bad shit 1,000 meters out on this exact fucking hazmat.
Oh my God. Talk about divine providence. That's some Pulp Fiction shit right there.
Right? Like, this shit was a miracle, and I want you to acknowledge it.
Can you imagine being the first group of guys, though? You having a heat round fly
You hear
past
that
your
whistling
head?
over your head? Maybe we should go home.
Oh, that was close. Oh, no.
Right?
My cousin.
They're in the bongo truck later, like, yeah, no, I'm telling Marsalis Wallace I'm out of this shit
Oh,
today.
yeah, really. That's so fun. Like, I remember one time it was like a brigade, might have been brigade level. It was certainly battalion level offensive going on in Solder. And second platoon, white platoon from my company, like I said, was the only tanks we had for that entire mechanized infantry task force. And so they were like the QRF. They would always go in first, do the route clearance. They would always lead the way into whatever AO we were going in at the time. And my battalion commander absolutely loved them because it's like I had, instead of Bradleys, I have Abrams. I have tanks that I can utilize. And the Mahdi militia, they threw up a hasty roadblock. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was like a repurposed school bus or something that they laid across the road so that they could have like an ambush alley. And we hear the battalion commander go, hey, white one, I want you to go main gun on that roadblock. I've got clearance from brigade. You're cleared hot, or whatever he said. And this lieutenant, who's now a lieutenant colonel, which is pretty awesome. I think he's actually on the Fulberg list. I think he's promotable. He's been in this entire time, but we were. He was a first lieutenant. I was second, but so I'm hearing over the battalion net, and this lieutenant's like, I may never ever get the opportunity to fire main gun in combat. in my life. So the battalion commander wanted him to fire like one heat round, and this guy just he just let go. Boom, boom, boom. Like they were just going through the gunnery drill with the loaders just throwing heat rounds in the breech, and they just fired and everything. And you just hear the battalion commander
cyclic with an Abrams.
Yeah. You just hear the battalion commander like screaming, "White one, cease fire, main gun!" I swear he got 4 rounds off.
Boom! Yeah. Can't hear you. Boom!
He's doing the like the my radio's breaking up. Fire again. It was awesome. It was like we were listening over the net, like you hear the communications going on, but then out your other ear, you hear the blasts going off, and I could just like imagine the school bus, like just flying to pieces. But
joke's on you, Commander. They packed the school bus full of kids. You're a fucking war criminal. Jesus. No, knowing Mahdi's army, man, they would have done that.
There were instances of children used as props, which I won't get into, but
no, they were pretty brutal. But to that note, man, we definitely walked away with a couple of mental scars.
We could go back and forth with war stories all day. I mean,
no shit.
That's what veterans do,
But it's not about the war porn now. It's about the post-traumatic healing.
It is, yes, and which is an important thing for guys, 20 years removed or close to that. I mean, was it 18 years now? Something like that?
Yeah, it is. It's wild. And
it's a long time.
Actually, for guys like us, there's this company. It's actually one of our sponsors. It's called Telemind.
Okay,
and they provide mental health services to service members, veterans, and their families.
That's awesome.
And it is, man. And what's great about them is, if you're in the VA system and you finally raise your hand and go, I need some help, please.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could take you half a year to finally be seen at this rate.
Sure.
Their wait times are more like 2 weeks.
Oh, that's good.
And all you have to do is ask for the referral. You just go in and say, no, I would like a referral to Telemind. They might not know
VA will refer you to them.
Yes. They might not know what it is right off the bat, but you just Google it, or Google it on your phone and go, these guys refer me, and they will.
That's excellent.
And it's covered through the VA. Same thing with if you're active duty, they take TRICARE. So you go into your provider and say, hey, refer me to Telemind, they will. And
that's awesome.
TRICARE will cover it. For dependents, it's even easier. They just have to call the number. They don't need a referral. They just say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm a dependent of this service member. Bam, they're in.
Wow, that's fantastic. Send me that link after this so I can push that out on my end, because that's an awesome resource.
It is.
People should really take advantage of. Cool.
Yeah, they're a solid bunch. I'm actually in the process of getting myself and my daughter enrolled as well through those guys.
That's great. Yeah. No, I'm thinking of using that for some family members as well, exploring some options, that, for the kids and whatnot, in terms of dealing with their, shrapnel that's gotten thrown off over the years from my stuff.
Yeah. So, it's true. Sometimes our shrapnel gets pushed out and they step on it. And now
and as a parent, you're like, it splits you in half, because on the one hand, you're like, okay, this isn't really my fault per se. Like, it's coming from me, but like, I'm doing the work. If, hopefully you're in that place in your life where you're getting the help and you are doing the work. So it's like, I'm doing the work to get better with something that I didn't really ask for and that I've been grappling with. So I'm doing the work. It's not really my fault of what's getting cast off because of the things that I'm dealing with. And then on the other side, as a parent, you're like, holy shit, this is completely my fault. What am I doing to my kid? And you want to shelter them and protect them and everything. So I'm very happy to hear that there's a service that extends to the dependents and to the children, because it's needed. We don't often think of, all of the touch points that our stuff that we bring home, that we wrestle with, expands out to your nuclear family and your extended family and friends, just people you meet on the street,
Yeah.
the old lady in the subway, I mean, like, you're sitting there punching out an 82-year-old woman because you had a bad day, and it's not
Yeah.
exactly the most copacetic thing to do,
82-year-old woman, though.
What's
I will
that?
say that. It's been a long time since I've knocked out an 82-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, I
I've
didn't
gotten
think
better
you.
since 2 weeks ago.
I was gonna say I didn't think you made a collection of it. And sitting there clipping out news clippings of the random punch out of elderly people,
So that's one game you probably didn't get to play too much in Iraq as a heavily mounted element, one punch knockout. Like you throw money in a pot before deployment. Like first guy who gets a one punch knockout gets like a case of beer or something.
Oh, you infantry guys. So obsessed with your hand-to-hand combat.
Melee attacks all day.
I had a guy the other day who's not in the right mindset, and is civilian, and he was not in the right mindset because I think he ingested something. If you know what I mean.
Sure.
But he's like, yeah, man, my best friend's a ranger. He's like the highest you can go. And I'm back of my head, I'm like, well, ranger isn't exactly the highest you can go, but it's a start. It's an elevated step on the stepping stone.
It's a really well-funded infantryman.
Right. Yeah. And then they get scrolls and tabs and stuff, and they're all hoo-ah and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
But I kept that because he obviously didn't know, active duty military and everything, and he was just kind of going on. He's like, yeah, my best friend, man, he's got 100 confirmed kills, and 5 of them were with his bare hands, man. And I'm like, I just looked at him like I couldn't hold my tongue. I'm like, in what circumstance would a ranger find himself that he would have to kill 5 people with his bare hands? And how would he ever, even do something like that? It sounds exhausting, like, and this guy was just like, oh no, this, that, and by that point he just trailed off. But I'm like, it's either he fought 5 people in one occasion and, took out all 5 with his bare hands, or he had 5 separate occasions where he killed one man with his bare hands. And I'm like, it doesn't add up. Like, how could you possibly find yourself with all the equipment that we have and all the ammo and your sidearm and your, like, everything? I mean, I carried fucking brass knuckles at a certain point. Like, I had an ass baton that I carried that as and I had like an Iraqi police officer come over to me, and I'm like, hey, man, you got to get these people out of here. Like, this is ridiculous. You got to control your perimeter. He's like, I've got nothing. They sent me out here. I've got this whistle. I've got, they don't listen to me. I took out my baton. I flipped it open and I handed it to him. This guy started cracking skulls, man. I was like, yo, give me that thing back before I get in trouble. But yeah, it was wild hearing that story. And like, I wasn't alone. So when I started calling him out on his nonsense, this guy about the hand-to-hand combat, like, all the other people started like giggling and like, you just see the guy was full of shit. So, but yeah, it's awesome. 100 confirmed kills.
Right.
Like, who
what the problem is? I think that guy probably had some PTSD just from listening to his buddy's stories.
Seriously. I mean,
shit would fuck me up, bro.
Ridiculous.
But so yeah, there was a kind of a cathartic healing element to the instructor when you wrote that, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because
on that path to writing that.
So the cathartic part of writing started when I first reached out for help to the VA, and shortly before that, we're talking like, I've been in counseling with the VA for like the better part of 10 years, maybe even more. And I was wrestling with a lot of stuff, but primarily before I went in, I was like crippled by these nightmares at night. These like very vivid, ultra violent, like terrible, horrible things, and I wasn't sleeping as a result, and like I was hyper vigilant and all just paranoid, all the stuff that comes with it. And I found that in session I couldn't really speak about them because it was like too disturbing to kind of articulate in words.
Mhm.
So I started writing them down, and I found that when I would write the nightmare episode onto paper, whether I typed it or freehanded or whatever, there was that cathartic element. There was this expunging of whatever it was. And it was almost like, okay, if I put it on this piece of paper and I take the piece of paper and I slide it into the drawer, I don't have to think about it anymore. Like it's done, it's gone. It wasn't like gone. Like I still had to do the stuff, the work to process what was
Sure.
fueling those, but I could function I could function in my day. There were times where I couldn't even get out of bed because they were so bad. And I was just like laid up. But at least I could, okay, just get to work, take 20 minutes, type this thing up, hit save, and then go about your day. And I was able to do that. Um, and then, as we talked about earlier, just my love of fiction writing, my imagination, everything. I just kept writing stories and short stories and whatnot. But I found as I started to progress as a writer and started writing more full length novel type manuscripts, that I was incorporating more and more themes of my service and PTSD and the therapeutic journey. And then, fast forward to 2017, 2018,
Mhm.
and I was talking with a work colleague who happens to be retired Marine Force recon and an intelligence officer, and a survival instructor. And we started kicking around this idea. We were just playing around. It wasn't anything serious. I was like writing short stories. I had this like fledgling little short story website that I was running, and I came up with this concept for this story about a survival instructor who crosses paths with a domestic terrorist group. And I said, like, would you mind if I kind of took your blueprint of your career, your backdrop, and create this fictional story? And he's like, yeah, whatever, go ahead. I don't care. So I started writing this thing, and it took off on me. Like the whole thing took off. I would come into work with like new chapters and show them to him. He'd be like, dude, this is awesome. And then I like just kept coming up with twists and turns. And but it really became a vehicle. Derek, the protagonist, Derek Harrington, it became a vehicle to really impart and again expunge on my end, but impart a lot of not only what PTSD does to the veteran themselves, but the effects that it can have on other people. And he's divorced. He's going through. He's a divorce as a result of his stuff that he's carried with him. He's alienating his son, who he cares about more than anything in life, but his relationship is becoming very strained because of his stuff. He has really bad anger issues, like rage issues, in the book. And I just started working that stuff in, and there's other characters that bring up other symptoms as well. And I take it as a like an opportunity, I guess you could say. Like
Okay.
if I can, so many guys and gals wrestle with whether or not they should get help, whether or not the suffer in silence thing, like like I'm not supposed to talk about this, or I'm fine, the denial and whatnot. And then it gets really bad, and it gets really and I did that for a little bit and everything, but like I said, I've been doing this for like 10 plus years. I've been in counseling, and it's gotten better. You got to put the work in, but it's gotten better. And my whole take of it was like, let's use whatever platform I have, whether I'm just talking to somebody on the street, or I'm doing a podcast, or I have this book. Like, let's talk about this stuff. Let's advocate for getting help. Let's get it out there in the open and raise awareness of it, and say, like, no, it's okay to go into counseling. It's okay to get help and talk about the horrible things, because you don't have to carry it your whole life. You don't have to, be crippled by this shit, and lying on your bedroom floor, or patrolling your backyard at 3 a.m., with a loaded shotgun. Like, that's not healthy. Like, we're not there anymore. It's done. It's over. So I always feel like the more I can advocate for it, and my writing is a big part of that, like, raise awareness and get people talking about it. And the hope is that, somebody somewhere reads it and goes, this is the kind of stuff I've been dealing with. And, oh, hey, the author has been in counseling, and he's done this. Like, maybe it's time that I do. It's not the intended purpose of the book. Obviously,
Yeah.
the book is for entertainment, but that's definitely like a collateral type thing that I have with it. For me personally, it's like, you have all this junk that you went through, and all this shit, and yeah, you're in a better place now. But wouldn't it be awesome if I could take all that negativity, all that negative experience, and flip it somehow?
Absolutely.
For a positive outcome, And so that's kind of like personally my take with, on top of the advocacy, is like, I want to make something positive out of this shit. So it wasn't like I just went through all this garbage just to go through it. Like, no, let's turn it into something. So
right. If you can make that trauma pay off 5, 10, 15 years later, do it.
Right.
People ask the question all the time, do you have to suffer to make art?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but you probably have to suffer a little bit to make good art.
Yeah.
To make art that means something, to make art that's worth a damn. So I mean, if you've suffered, make art.
Right. I mean, I've got a bunch of author friends that I've made in the writing community. They're fantastic, but two in particular pop out. One guy is great. His name is Nick Petrie. We're represented by the same agent, and his protagonist, Peter Ash, is a Marine veteran who was in the Battle of Fallujah and suffers from extreme claustrophobia from going house to house.
Yeah.
And the other one's Connor Sullivan, who protagonist. It's a female protagonist. The name slips my mind at the moment. And that's in his book, Sleeping Bear. She has her issues too, but both those authors, Nick and Connor, are not veterans themselves, but they write so convincingly that I thought they were. And I was shocked when I read the jacket in the back, where I'm like, oh, these guys aren't. And to me, it's like, you don't have to be a veteran. You don't have to experience trauma to write this stuff convincingly. But if you have, then you've kind of got a leg up, because you can, you don't have to research this stuff. You don't have to, do interviews and delve deep into it. Like, you've been there, done that, you've experienced it. So it makes it a little easier. It's one is not better than the other. I mean, Nick and Connor's writing is phenomenal, and I think far beyond mine. So it's like, oh, well, Tim was a veteran, so it's more authentic. No, that's not the case. Like, Nick's stuff is awesome. Connor's stuff is awesome. I just feel like, coming from like the backdrop of it, of having to actually put the work into writing this thing, like, it's got to be easier for me rather than those guys who were never in, never did it. Don't know what the acronym for I don't know. Pick your favorite acronym. I don't know. They're escaping me at the moment.
Bohica.
Bohica. Oh God. I don't even. Part of my thing, like when I got out and when I was like before I got into counseling, was I went through this period of like I almost erased everything from my memory.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I
You
took
just
all
brain
my
dumped it.
yeah.
I'm not going to use this anymore.
Like Men in Black, just just gone. Look right here, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
And just gone.
I'm going to miss my service. No, you won't. Boom.
Yeah. But I went. I one point I walked into this spare room that in the house we were renting, and there was just all my gear, my uniforms, just all piled up. That had, and it took up like half the room, and I threw it all in the back of my car and sold it to like a hunting goods store. The guy ripped me off. I didn't care. Just like it gave him like $3,000 worth of gear and uniforms for like $200, some nonsense, and a lot of the stuff, like the acronyms and the training like if you ask me the maximum effective range of the 120 millimeter, I'd be like, I think it's like 1.5 clicks, but I could be completely off on that. Like I don't remember. I just dropped that stuff,
Yeah.
So
if you remember Bohica, I could tell
I remember Bohica. I just don't know what it stands for.
You want to tell the audience what Bohica stands for?
No, I just said I don't remember. I
Oh,
remember
shit.
I remember the
We'll catch you
acronym. I
then.
don't remember what it actually means though.
Bohica stands for bend over, here it comes again.
Ah, yes. the more graphic version of FUBAR.
Yeah. But no, I mean, all that being said, that people who haven't served can write amazing stuff. Great example. Say David Ayer. You would guys. He's done Training Day, End of Watch, bunch of cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I thought he was a cop for a long time. I thought he had a Leo background. Like, turns out, no, he didn't. He's just a really good writer.
Exactly.
Shakespeare. Who wrote War better than Shakespeare?
I mean,
he never got close to it.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I'm sure it was easier. It's just as far as you said, the ease of it. I'm sure it was easier for Stone to do Platoon than Kubrick to do Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. I mean, like, because Stone, for what I understand, Platoon is largely based on his exact experience and the things that he went through. So again, just translating that story to paper and maybe tweaking things and changing names and whatnot, but pretty darn close. Those Vietnam guys, man, they holy hell. And then they look at us and they're like, we don't know how you guys did it.
Yeah. One of the most interesting experiences I've ever had with that was at the Infantry Museum on what used to be Fort Benning, is now Fort Moore, named after Hal Moore. Which is appropriate because this story involves meeting a guy who served with Moore on LZ X-Ray.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I met him standing outside the Vietnam exhibit, and he was just like staring off a little bit. He looked a little 1,000-yardy, and I was like, "Hey man, how you doing?" Oh, there's a lot here. He said something like that, like, "Man, there's a lot here." Like, yeah. We started talking about that, and again, it was like, "Don't know how you did it, man." And he looks at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead. He's like, "I don't know how you did it." Like, at least we knew who the fucking enemy was, man. Like, Jesus, it could have been anyone with you guys. Like, oh yeah, I guess. But
the biggest thing I get from the Vietnam guys is we were one and done. Like, we had like 2-year enlistments a lot of times. You had 1 year train up, 1 year deployment, and you were done if you were drafted, and they look at me and they be like, the concept that in 12 or 18 months that we would be going right back there for another year, and that we would keep up that operational tempo year after year after year for 2 decades, where you're spending half that time deployed fighting the same fight. They're like, I couldn't, like, we barely made it through our 1 year that we had to serve in country, like to have to go back over and over again. So,
honestly, I think we had it better in that way. I get what you're saying. You show up 365 and wake up, you're done. But the way they were rotating out there, man, I mean, a unit would go out there and stay, and the only thing that would rotate out was the troops.
yeah,
So you had guys showing up, and they're in this salty fucking platoon with guys who were like 83 and a wake up left, and they're just
right,
piece of shit FNG that nobody wants to get near because
right,
they're just gonna die or get someone killed.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then they go home alone. They go home with nothing.
Right,
Versus us, at least we trained up with the same dudes. We got to know and got to love and hate the same people
right,
for however long it was. And then we know at least the goal is that we're all coming home together
right.
to fight the next one.
Yeah.
I would take that model. I would take our model over their one and done any day, man.
Oh, certainly that logistical, like, oh, we're just going to use individual augmentees in and out,
Yeah.
which coincidentally was my second deployment. I was an individual augmentee to,
Okay.
where I was just sent over by myself, came home by myself. It was just, it was a different experience. The big army's gotten away from that, obviously, with, the way that they have combined arms battalions, and like you just articulated, whole units going in and out in the plug and play fashion. But there still is those, I guess, periphery ancillary services that we need a guy here, we need two guys there, and they just throwing pawns around the chessboard kind of thing.
Yeah. And those guys had a hard time. We had one of those. I think the Marines, they call them like a boot drop, if you will,
something like that. Yeah,
combat replacements. And we got a handful of those sent out to our platoon. So we'd taken a lot of casualties at this point, and we were low, man.
Yeah.
And then this fresh boot drop comes out. Now they had a really hard time assimilating. Again, because we were just, these salty fucks that have been there for the better part of a year at this point. And, half of those guys were on the last deployment together.
Right.
Didn't make it any better that, when they got to us, one of our first times outside the wire, we took an absolutely catastrophic mass-cas. It was this mortar volley at it was the perfect storm, man. We're like, the platoon was coming in off patrol. The IAs were doing their shit in the courtyard. Force Pro was going out on an IED sweep. We ended up taking, I think, 31, 32 casualties. And I mean, at the end of that thing, we had I was a PFC team leader. We had E4 squad leaders. Our platoon sergeant was an E6, and our platoon leader was an E6.
Oh, wow.
We didn't even have a fucking lieutenant at this point. We had a senior staff sergeant as our platoon leader.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was rough.
That's rough, man. Yeah. Especially if you're a new guy walking in, that's crazy.
Yeah. One of them actually got tagged in that mass-cas, and he got caught ripping this wound open in his leg with a Gerber, just to stay inside the wire. He was like, nope, if that's what it's like, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So he ended up got rid of him, but
yeah, obviously,
yeah,
he's not really the guy you want watching your back.
No, I'm happy to have him do our laundry. That's
right. Right.
Grab some to-go plates. Fuck. Oh, fun times, man.
All good stuff.
So what's on the agenda? I know you got some ideas kicking around. What are you writing next?
So when I signed with my publisher, I signed with Tor Forge. They signed me to a 2-book deal. So cool. I am as a series. So I am now in the final edits of the sequel.
So Derek's coming back.
Derek is back, baby. Derek, I've got pegged for at least in this storyline.
In this story, Derek gets pegged.
Jesus,
this took a turn. Jesus. Okay.
Yes, I'm
What
going from wilderness survival, domestic terrorism, combat to erotica. Wilderness.
Did this come from one of your experiences overseas too? Or
we did get close over there. No, somebody's got to be the little spoon. No. Derek, I have planned out for 3 to 4 books in this particular storyline. And then from there, I plan to spin him off into like individual standalone kind of one and done books, depending on the things I can come up with. And then there's also certain characters in the sequel in particular. There's 2 characters that I would like to spin off into their own series as well, or at least their own one and done about like their backstory and everything. And then I got some other ideas of like I can turn him into kind of, because Derek's an older guy, like he's a retired Marine, so he's in like his I'd say early 40s when this book starts,
right.
probably early to mid 40s. So he can't be doing this forever, like I don't have the longevity of like, say, Nick's guy, Peter Ash, because that picks up like just a few years after he got out. And, guy's not even like 30 yet, or maybe just turned 30.
Okay.
I've got this, kind of shorter window for the running and gunning with Derek, so at a certain point I want to transition him over to like the Obi-Wan role where he's, raising young Jedis up, and
Nice.
those people get spun off into their own stories. And then I got all sorts of stuff that doesn't even touch the universe of the instructor,
Okay.
all sorts of other standalones and different characters that I want to work with, different genres. I said earlier, I started off writing fantasy novels. I've got a horror novel in mind. I've got some historical fiction in mind. I've got a paranormal adventure kind of murder mystery magic type story involving Harry Houdini.
Okay.
So that one could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got a good idea about that one. So, the wheels are always turning. There's always stuff. But for right now, finishing the sequel, it's coming along nicely. I think people are going to really enjoy it. It picks up right where the instructor leaves off and goes forward into the storyline, and we expand. We start getting, a larger, the 50,000-foot view rather,
Cool.
than just Derek dealing with the one camp in upstate New York. We start going out into the wider continental US a little bit. So
Yeah. Very good. Any thoughts
yeah,
of converting any of these stories for the screen?
I'd love to, 100%. There's a couple of inklings of interest out there, which is exciting. We'll see what happens. The reviews are good right now, and I don't know what the sales numbers are, but if the reviews on the book keep the rating that it's holding right now, it's like low. It's in like the 4-point lowish out of 5-star range on most of the services where it's offered. So, 4 out of 5 stars isn't bad, and if we get enough people and the sales are good and everything, I'm hoping that those inklings of interest, really pick up and everything. But I'd love to. I want to be, part of the adaptation where I'm, on the set, sitting there saying like, I'll do the
Yeah.
Arlie Ermy thing where I go running onto the set and be like, that's bullshit. That's not how it would be done, and everything else like that. I actually want to be one
Yep.
of the
It's like, what? You do it.
yeah, there's 12 guys in the book that Derek directly trains, but I really only name and describe like half of them because like having 12 people to keep track of in a book is just it's pointless, So
Sure.
I want to be one of those if it gets transferred to the screen. I want to be one of those 6 nameless guys in the training where I just have like a tooth missing and, you know, like and a mullet, you know, and I'm just like in the background in my gear, just walking around aimlessly like I don't know anything, which is, you know,
that'd be cool.
would harken back to my lieutenant days anyway. So, you know, I'm good to go.
Maybe holding a map upside down.
Pointing the compass.
Awesome, man. Where can people find the instructor?
The instructor is available at all the major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, but it's also out in all the independent local bookstores as well. And if they don't have it on hand, you can ask them to order it. I love supporting, you know, local business, independent bookstores. You know, the big retailers are great, but that spider web of independent bookstores, local bookstores is just, you know, phenomenal. So, and they're like the lifeblood of the industry. So you can definitely check them out there. I am at sorry, that's my old one. I'm at trhendricksauthor.com. That's my website. You can find me on Twitter at tr_Hendricks. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at readtrhendricks. And yeah, sign on up, you know, drop on by and pick up the instructor.
Beautiful.
We got live events coming soon too. I did a live book launch in New York City
I saw that.
To you know, to celebrate the actual pub day on April 11th. And now I've got some stuff coming up over the summer. So stay tuned for that as well.
Outstanding. Well, definitely please make sure to push out any of your live stuff where you're going to be out and about, especially if you're coming out into my neck of the woods, man. If you're going to be in the greater DC area, let me know, dude.
Oh, 100%.
And I'll definitely get that information on Telemind to you, so you can push that out on your end.
Sounds great.
Cool. Well, man, again, awesome talking with you. Great to see you face to face again. Thank you so much for coming out, and congrats on all the success, man.
Thanks.
Congrats
Same
on
to
the
you.
instructor, on everything to come.
Yeah,
Excited.
Thanks for having me. Congrats on Pop Smoke. I mean, it's just absolutely awesome content. I love what you guys are pushing out. I love the Smoke Pit, and yeah, this has been a blast. Not just from a catching up perspective, but you know, just from having the opportunity to talk about these things. And I'd love to come back for the sequel. So let's do this again.
Absolutely, man. Maybe we can get you in the studio for that one.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Cool.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Be well.
All
man.
right, Parna. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. Take care.